to the Bowden Blitz SEC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, the calm before the storm. Week number 12 is on the horizon. Great top 25 battles in the SEC. We'll take a look at the updated odds entering this coming Saturday. Right now, Texas A&M is the team to beat, fresh off their road win in Columbia against Missouri, plus 145 for the Aggies, followed by Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas. It's still a wide open race entering week number 12, but the Aggies look like the team to beat, at least short term in the conference.
Well, the Aggies were their only undefeated team. They have found a way every week to win a football game, including, and we'll talk about it a little later, handling Missouri pretty comfortably. And so they are the team to beat because they play good offensively, win big, win small, play good defense. Great third down football team on defense, and somebody's going to have to show they can beat Texas A&M for them to take that spot. After that, it's you pick it, Alabama, Georgia. I think of the next two, Texas is going to have a chance to play Alabama. Going to have a chance to play A&M, and they're going to find out how good they are. This week ought to be good when Texas plays Georgia as well. So, like the ACC, you've still got some head-to-heads in the next week or two that are going to mean everything.
I think it's important to recognize we have two SEC potential elimination games this weekend, Alabama and Oklahoma. Right. Not so much for Alabama because they only have one loss, but for Oklahoma fighting for their playoff lives. And then Texas and Georgia. Again, Georgia with only one loss, but the Longhorns, even though they have only one conference loss, did lose to top-ranked Ohio State. So they lose a third game. Potentially, they could be on the outside looking in for a college football playoff berth. So when we look at the updated odds, Coach, in the SEC, Ole Miss basically is sitting pretty, right? Their tough games are behind them. 11-1 right now. They have as good a shot as anybody to win a title.
Well, they have a great shot of getting to the game. Florida, Mississippi State, they're going to be favored over both those games. And now they just got to have one great game. One SEC championship game to just shake the whole thing up. But really, they go undefeated and just kind of wait and see what happens because everybody's got a loss now except for Alabama and Texas. Something's going to give out where they're sitting. They may very well get a chance to be in that championship game where they could win it and get the championship.
And we even talk about the week after Thanksgiving, the last week in November, Coach. Georgia will play an out-of-conference game against their arch rival, Georgia Tech. That could have conference title odds or college football playoff odds. And then the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss and Miss State. Miss State entering this week will be looking to pick up a win to become bowl eligible. They would love nothing more than to knock off Ole Miss at the end of the regular season to potentially knock them out of college football playoff contention. So this is just the first hurdle. So when we look at the updated championship odds for a national title, Coach, I think it's important to recognize, Texas A&M at 7-1, but Georgia is there, Ole Miss. The Longhorns, I still think, are on the outside looking in, but I keep going back to that Oklahoma number, Coach, at 40-1. They pick up this victory this weekend against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They're significantly going to be cheaper come next week.
Yeah, the problem, again, when you get to the championship, you've got to win 3 after you get there. If you get there, you've got to win 3 or 4 to get to the championship game. And now you're looking at which teams have the strength, the overall talent, play well on both sides of the ball, and I think you kind of narrow it down. At least the odds get a little bit greater there, so you can. It's kind of some fun teams to pick when you see the numbers of the opportunities. But again, you're looking not just can they get there, how can they play well down the stretch? Like Alabama, do you have a strong enough running game as it goes through to get you through the playoffs? A lot of these teams don't look as good to be matched up against 3 of the top teams in the country. I'm talking about going through the playoffs to get to the championship game.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting week number 12. Coach and I will dive into it a little bit later in the show. We talked about the national championship odds. How does that relate potentially to the Heisman Trophy? Ty Simpson with another solid performance. He's 5 and 5-1 to win a Heisman Trophy, followed by Marcel Reed, Diego Pavia that picked up an overtime win over Auburn last week, 45-38. Gunnar Stockton at 30-1, and the guy that doesn't seem to get enough credit, he was hot as a pistol earlier on, was Trinidad Chambliss. All he does is put up numbers and win. He's fallen behind now to some of the others in the conference, Coach.
Yeah, they've forgotten about him. I mean, he's got to go ahead. He's got to win these couple of games here, then go win the SEC championship. And let's remember, the Heisman gets voted on the weekend after the conference championship game. And so it's going to be before any of the playoffs down the road. So you kind of have to picture. I mean, it's like me. I love Pavia. What if he were to beat Tennessee and were to beat Kentucky and then go out there and play? And then everybody's watching him in the SEC championship game if he had a chance to get there, you know. But anyway, I just think, to me, I think he's the most exciting quarterback in the country if you were voting on the guy that's making the biggest impact on their program. But I think we've got to see which of these guys takes their team to and through their conference championship.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which quarterback is standing. I think the one, when you look at big picture, happens to be Marcel Reed. He wasn't a household name potentially at the start of the year, but he's versatile. He's a dual threat, completing well over 60% of his passes. He could do it with his arm and his legs. Coach, he had a dynamic performance yet again, consistent, doesn't turn the football over, puts his team in a position to win at plus 850. If they were to knock off Texas, he wins an SEC championship.
Right.
Has he done enough? I know he's within striking distance, but I feel like the love is always for Alabama and Ty Simpson. Can Marcel Reed potentially steal it over the likes of Ty Simpson or even Indiana's Fernando Mendoza about where we are in the regular season?
Well, I mean, if you're going to throw in those two Big Ten quarterbacks, they have the perfect situation. Likely to go undefeated. One of them, Ohio State, he plays Michigan. Then they're going to play as two undefeated teams likely for the conference championship. That's going to get most of the publicity. If Marcel Reed were to go out there and beat Ty Simpson in the SEC championship to lead his team, that adds a new light to that. So it's very important, I think, when we're talking about a Heisman Trophy winner coming out of the SEC, they've got to have a great last game and a great championship game, because the publicity really is – there's not a dynamic name that people are grabbing. In fact, I mean, I don't think there's a big name that everybody falls in love with yet. It's still kind of an open Heisman race at this point.
We'll see exactly what transpires as we enter week number 14 and beyond. But news came out of Baton Rouge today, Coach. Multiple sources are saying that the odds-on favorite potentially to be the new head coach at LSU is, in fact, Nick Saban. He's a 2-1 shot to potentially be the next head coach. He's the front runner right here, right now. Thoughts about Nick Saban returning to LSU and coaching the Tigers in 2026?
I mean, I could see him being the odds-on favorite to be the favorite, but I just don't see him getting back in. Now, if he just has a change of heart, it wasn't just about him missing football, but it's about the NIL situation, the portal transfer situation. The entire process that you go through now is different. Developing players is different. And he really doesn't need it. He's probably, 72, 73 years old. Would they take him in a heartbeat? Is he the favorite guy to wish you had him there? Yeah, I'll have to see it to believe it, because I believe there's nothing more he can do in the game of football than be the greatest football coach of all time.
I agree with you, and we're going to pick this up after we come back from break, because there's a number of different things to tackle and perspectives. If you're LSU, you want to get back to the pinnacle and challenge the best teams in the conference. Can they do it with an aging Nick Saban? We'll talk about it next. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden recapping week number 11 in the SEC. The game at night in Tuscaloosa was a rivalry game. It was a game in which last year Alabama walked into Death Valley and dominated the LSU Tigers. On Saturday night, Alabama opened as a 9.5-point home favorite. We saw 10.5s across multiple books. It was an ugly game, Coach, but in the end, Alabama gets the win and cover against LSU. LSU's offense struggled yet again. Garrett Nussmeier benched at halftime in favor of Michael Van Buren. It didn't matter. They only put up 9 points in the loss. Alabama still looks like the team to beat. They're starting to trend in the right direction. But for LSU, this team now has many questions to answer, not just this year, but next year as well.
Well, you've got a coaching change because they did nothing to change what they've been doing the next game. You only had to look at Auburn against Vanderbilt where they changed the offensive play callers, and it changed everything. LSU changed nothing. They rushed for 59 yards again. And you know what? Nussmeier was 18 of 21. I mean, you can't do much better than that. He didn't have any interceptions, but they don't do enough. And offensively, they don't challenge anybody. And so I think it's much, much bigger than just an offensive lineman are not good enough. They really schematically, play calling wise, they don't have anybody in their program that's moved them in a different direction. But all that being said, 10.5 points. I mean, it was only 11 points. That was about right, about what they got, about as close as I thought they could get. Now, they just kind of limp through this season and get ready for next year. Because when you change a coach, you have a chance to change everything quickly, but not this year.
And we talked about Nick Saban now being the odds-on favorite across multiple books. He's a 2-1 shot to potentially be roaming the sidelines next year. We heard about Lane Kiffin. Kiffin is now the favorite to be the new Florida head coach. He's minus 380 across multiple books. But the bigger question mark remains, can Nick Saban find that momentum that he had back in 2003 and, more importantly, in his recent stint in Tuscaloosa, Coach? Because, again, he loses the college football semifinal to Michigan. They lose it by 7 points. His team seemed to be regressing to a degree, not being as dominant in the run game, not being as dominant defensively that we've seen when he won 6 national championships for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and he was very critical of NIL. So why would he want to get back into the game, even though he feels like it's unsettled business at LSU? If you're an LSU backer, I understand the name recognition, but you could go for younger head coaches that potentially could lure in the talent, unless you tell me Nick Saban is just going to be like a CEO of the program.
Well, I mean, just to throw Nick Saban out there, like I say, I live in Louisiana. The name Nick Saban won a championship, got their program heading back in the right direction years ago before they had 2 more national championships after him. I don't think they see him as a washed out guy. They vision how it used to be. Now, I'm with you. I think I don't see him going back. I think he's just a favorite of being the favorite. You know, that's all I see him as being. But people tend to like to live in the past. They like to grab all. I mean, look, they've got Belichick at North Carolina. He's older than Nick, and they thought he would come back and turn it all the way around. And again, if they're worried about paying all that money to Brian Kelly, you better get another pocketbook out because it's going to cost you at least that or more to get Nick. But I'm with you. I think Nick's had the greatest career in the history of college football. I don't see him jumping back in to prove what? That he can do it again at a place that he's already done it? It just doesn't make sense to me. But it does make sense to LSU people because they believe that's the greatest place in the world is to coach at LSU. And if he did it before, he'll come back and do it again. Sometimes it takes fresh blood. It takes a young Nick Saban to take them where they need to go.
We'll see exactly what transpires. The twists and turns surrounding the opening head coaching position in Baton Rouge never disappoints. I'll tell you one team that never disappoints. That's the Georgia Bulldogs because they bring their A game potentially each and every week. They find ways to grind it out. They struggled against Florida a couple of weeks ago, win that game 24-20 in the fourth quarter. This past weekend in Stark Vegas, Coach, they ran the football right down Miss State's throats because Nate Frazier with a dynamic performance, great offensive line play. Their defense forced turnovers, made Mississippi State's offense look pedestrian for the most part. And this was a team in Miss State that challenged both Tennessee and Texas at home, took them both home to the wire. Coach, Georgia had a 30-point lead in the fourth quarter. They close it out and win by 20. They get the win and cover last week. This looks like the best team potentially in the conference.
Well, right now this is what they wanted to do, to progress offensively better and better. And of course, this is incredible. So 567 yards, over 300 rushing, 265 passing, just an incredible performance offensively. And then they shut down Mississippi State, a team that's been pretty hot this year. So I think what we're seeing is a kind of a Mississippi State team. I think they've had some fantastic games and lost. I think they kind of ran out of gas and things didn't go right. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of that has to do with Georgia and the way Georgia is trending and getting better and better. Which, you know what, if you're an old head coach like Kirby Smart, or you're a veteran head coach, you want to get good toward the end of the season. That's exactly what Georgia's doing.
And for Miss State, everything is in front of Miss State right now. 5 wins. They win one game over the next 3 weeks, or 3 games on their regular season. They will be, in fact, bowl eligible. They would love nothing more than to knock off Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. Everything that they wanted to do in year number 2 with Jeff Lebby is right there for the taking. For Georgia, we'll break down that game a little bit later in the week against Texas. This is a game where Georgia cannot take Texas lightly. Texas comes into this matchup, Coach, looking to make a statement. Not only that, they lost the last 2 games to the Bulldogs in the SEC championship. This is a game that Georgia cannot overlook the Longhorns this coming weekend.
Oh, no, it's a huge game. It's everything to Georgia. You can't beat Texas and get where you want to go, and Texas is the same way. But Texas doesn't necessarily play that well on the road, and I don't think Sarkisian has done a good job in big games like Kirby Smart. So I really going to be a tough one for Texas when we talk about that one going into Athens and pulling a victory against Georgia.
When we come back, we'll talk more recaps and take a look at week number 12 right here on the Bowden Blitz. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden taking a look back at week number 11 in the SEC. Game of the day took place in Columbia, Missouri. Texas A&M opened as a 5.5-point road favorite. We saw 6.5s and 7s across multiple books before game time. This game was all A&M offensively and defensively, never threatened by Missouri in this matchup, Coach. They win it going away 38-17. Now many are calling, including Lane Kiffin, that Texas A&M is potentially not just the best team in the SEC, but the best team in college football entering week number 12.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going that far. They're right there in that small group, undefeated because they play well every week. But you can't beat the number 1 team in the SEC with a third-team quarterback. Matt Zollers had never started a football game. Goes in there against the number 1 team, number 1 third down defense in the country. Starts out 3 for 11 in the first half, about 31 yards, and finishes up 7 for 22 for 77 yards. A rough day for him. And they had 2 running backs get over 100 yards. They ran the ball to help him out, but there wasn't enough because what happened was Texas A&M kept pulling away, and they had no answer. Think it would have been closer if they still had Bo Pribula, but I don't think they would have beaten A&M regardless. But regardless of that, A&M took advantage of a rookie quarterback, laid it on them, and now they are considered by many as good as anybody to win a national championship.
Coach, with the loss for Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri, now their hopes are gone as a dark horse for a college football playoff. Knowing that maybe he's plateaued at Missouri to a certain capacity, do you think he takes a bigger job maybe even out of conference, maybe in the Big Ten or some of these other programs that have openings?
Well, I want to say this. I'm not sitting there thinking he's necessarily plateaued. He's had to play his third quarterback because he's on his number 3. That pretty much makes this season iffy the rest of the way through because it's tough in the SEC. But I've always felt you're going to plateau at Missouri earlier than at Florida or at LSU. And if your ambition was, to me, Nick Saban understood not only did he have to make a commitment to winning a championship, he had to go work for a school that was committed to winning for an championship. That's why he ended up at LSU in Alabama, where the financial and the facilities and the historical commitment is there to play for a national championship. So if they can keep Drinkwitz at Missouri, keeping, but there are other places where the plateau doesn't settle down as low as it is at Missouri, always having to fight the top teams in the conference.
Well, one of the games of the week takes place back in Alabama, Coach. Oklahoma fighting for their playoff lives. Can't afford to lose this game. They open as 6.5-point road dogs to the Crimson Tide, fresh off Alabama's win over LSU. We talk about Alabama only losing one time at home in Bryant-Denny, dating back to 2020. They had a very good defensive effort. How do you feel early on, Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners match up against this Alabama defense?
Well, the Alabama defense played much better Saturday, and they are getting better and better themselves. This is not just a one-dimensional Alabama. This is kind of a one-dimensional Oklahoma, too. They don't mix that. They don't run the ball very well. And I just think Ty Simpson, going against a better defense, I think, at Oklahoma, Ty Simpson is the difference maker. If you're going to be a little bit one-dimensional, which Alabama is, you better have a Ty Simpson who doesn't turn the ball over. He's going to be out there playing great every week. John Mateer isn't quite that good. And so because the defense is playing rather well at Alabama, I like the one-dimensional Alabama against Oklahoma a little better than the one-dimensional Oklahoma against Alabama, and the fact that Oklahoma needs turnovers, and I don't think you're going to get any turnovers at Alabama.
Coach, when you see Oklahoma and knowing schematically they shut down Kalen DeBoer's offense with Jalen Milroe, advantage for Brett Venables maybe defensively entering this game? You think that's a matchup to keep an eye out on, even though it is Ty Simpson versus Milroe from last year?
Yeah, I mean, there are differences in the two things. First of all, Ty Simpson to me, he's more of an NFL quarterback that's a pocket thrower that can run smart. I think Milroe was a much better runner. I think Alabama has the big threats at wideout that can beat you deep. I just think it's a little different type of football team at Alabama this year than last. That being said, because Alabama doesn't run very well, it may catch up with them against Oklahoma. It will catch up with them in the postseason. They will not get to the playoffs running like they did last week. 56 yards in last week's game, or 59 yards. It'll catch up somewhere. I just don't think it'll catch up with them against Oklahoma in Tuscaloosa.
For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. We'll see you later in the week right here on the Bowden Blitz.